guns, sex, felony crimes, and endless film references. Sounds like a typical weekend for us, right? Wrong! It's the game that introduced violence to humanity. It's Grand Theft Auto 3, this week on Nothing Good.
Good evening.
Good evening. Hello.
How's it going, man?
Oh, it's going well, Doc. How have you been?
I've been great. Look, I gotta tell you, I really enjoyed that intro.
Good.
That was a lot,
Yeah.
and I could tell you really felt it.
I did feel it. I'll feel it again. You know, I would troll you by doing it a second time, but it just...
You don't have to do that.
No. You don't have to. No, you really don't have to.
It was good. Once is good.
Once is enough. Oh, man. If I had $1 for every time I've heard that.
Hey, so, here's... What episode is this? 10?
No, 11?
11? Episode 11.
We're double digits now, baby.
I don't even know how to feel about this. I'm just excited to be here, as always, in this lovely studio. And I'm excited, before we get started... would you like to tell us about what we're drinking tonight?
Oh, you're getting right into it. I love it. Yes. So we are drinking a Lagunitas brand, is the brewery. Hazy Wonder beer. 6%. Let's, dear listener.
There you go.
Oh, you like that. Now let's give it a shot. Let's see how we're doing. We're setting the mood already, folks.
Yeah.
No bones about it this week.
3-day weekend. I can get a little lit up tonight.
Well. Oh, that's actually good. That is much more... citrusy than I thought it was going to be.
So it says on the can, it always starts nebulous. A reflection of a refraction in the back of your frontal cortex. Then, before you know it, you just know it. I dig that.
I have something completely different.
Oh, what does yours say?
When a brilliant idea strikes, why do they say a light bulb goes off and not on? The difference between a spark of genius and a flash in the pan really just comes down to think or whim. But how can something so hazy be so bright? Life is uncertain. Don't sip. This damn beer dropped some philosophy and then it said, chug.
Drink that shit.
All right.
I like it. It is good.
The key striking thing for me, I didn't notice this when I bought it.
Oh, wait. Hold on. Not to cut you off, but it says it on my can, too. But what I read was at the top of the rim up here.
Oh.
Which I'm assuming says the same thing.
Yes. However, mine eyes are not good enough to read that shit. It's written in silver on yellow. Yeah, that's not for me. But it has a gold tab on the top. Mm-hmm. So, dear listener, welcome to Nothing Good. Thank you for joining us. We last enjoyed our bashing bash at the beach. At the beach. That was an experience for us to record, and we hope it was an equal experience for you to listen to.
Equally good. Not equally frustrating, annoying at the beginning, and then turned out pretty good towards the middle and end.
But the same level of creepy. I hope it was the same level of creepy. Because there was some creep. There was some creep involved. But we're here today to talk about Grand Theft Auto 3. Mm-hmm. You read it when you picked it, and if you can't read, God bless you for finding this somehow. But that's the subject. We're back on our, this will be our second video game podcast. Mm-hmm. So we're just trying to test the waters out. But before we begin, because I could tell from you getting to the beer, I think that or you were just really thirsty.
I could use a beer.
Okay, there it is. I thought you were like, let's get into the episode. No, you're just a thirsty man, and I respect that. Before we do, I would like to introduce a new segment. Could be recurring, could be one time. You and the dear listeners will tell me if it's a working thing. Okay. It's our first segment. And it's a little game we're going to play.
Oh, boy.
It's called Condiments or Pornography.
What? Okay. Oh, all right.
Here's how it goes.
Okay.
I'm going to read a line. It could be a quote, it could be a tagline. And you have to tell me if it's part of the marketing materials for a condiment or if it was said by a porn star.
I'm ready for this.
Are you ready?
Oh, man, yeah.
Dear listener, singular listener, and Jeff, are you guys ready?
You better be.
All right. Here's number one. The rules are, I read the thing and you tell me if it's a condiment or pornography.
Okay.
Number one, it's thick and delicious.
It's a condiment.
Yes, that is Heinz ketchup.
That's definitely
Easy.
a condiment.
All right. Number two, enjoy it raw or with a sandwich.
That's also a condiment.
No, that is Riley Reid.
Oh!
Pornographer.
Okay.
Riley Reid. Number three, oh, fuck yeah, spread it.
That's a condiment.
That is Hellman's mayonnaise.
Yeah,
that's from their new with olive oil campaign. Oh, fuck yeah, spread it. Hellman's mayonnaise.
Okay, this is good. This is good.
All right, and the last one. You're doing really good.
Thanks.
You're really good. You're 2 for 3. And here we go. Number 4. Can you get a trifecta? Here we go.
What? You can't say without laughing.
I was so ready to do this. And I can't do it.
Okay.
All right. Leaving us in. Okay. Oh, God, don't stop. I'm about to come. Oh, God, I'm coming. I'm coming so hard. I'm coming so fucking hard. Fuck.
A pornographer.
No, it's a trick question. It's neither a condiment or a pornographer. It's the new slogan for the United States Postal Service. Oh, God, we're coming.
Oh.
The United States Postal Service. You did good. 50%.
Thanks.
That's nice.
I tried.
Thank you for joining us on this week's
We'll see you next
Condiments
time.
or Pornography.
All right. I like that. That was fun.
Inside baseball about that segment idea. I was sitting in traffic. And I decided, because I don't really want to text in the car, I decided to voice to text my ideas for the gags, and so I yelled, "Oh, fuck yeah, spread it." And didn't realize my windows were down.
I like it.
Oh, man.
The blue Nissan next to you is like,
I didn't even look around to see who heard that.
Why would you
No
want
eye
to?
contact.
No.
Windows just went right up. And then I proceeded to do the, oh, God, don't stop. I'm about to come. Oh, God, I'm coming. I'm coming so hard. The United States Postal Service.
I really hope that anybody who's listening to this has headphones on.
Please make that your ringtone.
Do not listen to this.
If you happen to be, let's say it's Thanksgiving and you're listening to this around the table.
Oh my God.
You got little cousins in the other room. All your aunties are debating about the finer points of a green bean casserole, and you're playing this on the Bluetooth speaker. Please start with this episode.
Yes.
Please.
And if they give you the side eye, you had it coming.
Yes, I will happily, upon demand, repeat all of that just for you to send to your family. So, but welcome, Grand Theft Auto 3.
Yeah, how about that?
Here we are. So I suppose we're going to try our hardest today, singular dear listener, to keep on some sort of track. Because I want to go through, once we hit episode 25, here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to go through the first 24 episodes. And I'm going to mathematically figure out how long it takes us to get off track in each episode.
Okay.
That last one didn't count because I announced that it was a segment. I just didn't randomly go into dirty condiment things, but I'm very curious to see how far it is. So, and we are actively trying to see that as well.
Yeah.
Amongst us, singular listener.
Yes.
But Grand Theft Auto 3, a video game. It was released on October 22nd, 2001 for the PlayStation 2.
We are pushing 20 years.
Yes.
Which is wild.
We could have waited a few weeks to have this take place on the 20th anniversary, but we didn't fucking think about it.
No.
So, we're here.
We don't do foresight here.
No. Excuse me. Very little long-term planning happens here, and nothing good. But it was released originally for the PlayStation 2, and a theme that may pop up, ironically, as we go on too. Its original release was delayed by just over a month because of the events of September 11th, 2001.
This is true. They toned down a little bit of the violence. They changed the cover art because of 9/11.
Actually, yes, so they did. So that is the most important change. That the Grand Theft Auto, the iconic GTA 3 cover art, which would appear for every Grand Theft Auto game afterward, and is a super hallmark of the series. In an earlier episode, I mentioned that I have the strategy guide over here for GTA 4 because I love the cover art of the GTA series so much.
I mean, the cover art is completely Grand Theft Auto.
It is. That's what you look for, and it was only created very quickly, last minute, because of a reaction that the original cover was too edgy.
A little too violent.
Yeah, a little too violent. And generally, on a game that is, admittedly, super fucking violent.
It is violence.
It is violence. They discovered that it was too much violence in certain areas, and they had to tone it down. I didn't have that in my notes. I also had some other changes, small ones that they had from 9/11. They reskinned a lot of stuff.
Oh, did they?
Including the cop cars, which were exactly modeled after the New York NYPD cop cars of that era, which you ironically and iconically saw during the 9/11 attacks all the time. So they decided they didn't want to trigger anybody, like literally a month after that event happened. So they reskinned that. A lot of buildings, there are no buildings that have that general office thing. Everything has more character if it was taller. That was done on purpose by the developers. They removed flyable planes, which were supposed to appear in more things. But they did leave a single dodo in the game.
Well, everybody knows the dodo.
Everyone knows the dodo. You know it more in depth from its sequel counterparts in Vice City, that awesome mission where you're dropping dildos from the dodo. But in this game, I remember when a friend of mine discovered that the dodo was still in the game without wings, and you had to get into that shit and learning to fly it in that weird... Did you ever fly the dodo in that game? All right, you had to get a super head start, and the game didn't want you to fly it, but they didn't take it out. So immediately, as soon as you pull up, it sinks like a brick. It's like advanced physics. It has no wings. They cut the wings off of it. So you had to ride it, and this is not a visual podcast, so no one at home is going to follow this. And we'll keep it brief.
What he's doing
but
right
when
now.
you went up and immediately sinks, so you had to actually pull down and up into it and swoop it. And that's the only way you had to keep doing it, and you can get a little higher than you were last time on the swoop. So you actually use the game's physics that's the only way you could fly. Downside is you couldn't really turn in the dodo. So you just got super high until you flew off the map and you were dead anyway.
That's very Grand Theft Auto.
That is. But yes, so the biggest change was the cover art, right? So, but the game comes out October 22nd, 2001. It is immediately a buzzworthy term. Not only, I think, because it's a good game, which it is, and we'll get into that more in a little bit, but because of two things. One, we are still in the era so nearly after 9/11 that anything that was exceptionally aggressive, right, almost kind of got curtailed a little bit. And this was the first real cultural violence thing that kind of came out and as much as it could be as a positive thing, right? Like it's a video game, it's a piece of art. So
Grand Theft Auto, I didn't have a PlayStation 2 ever, actually. So I didn't play Grand Theft. I didn't own it. I only played it at a friend's house here, a friend's house there.
Interesting.
But I knew about it. I knew about Grand Theft Auto, the franchise, before Grand Theft Auto 3. Right? Never played the first two, obviously. They were PC games. I didn't touch them.
And they were PlayStation
but I knew what they
games
were.
Too. Yeah.
Little fun fact about Grand Theft Auto. Originally, Grand Theft Auto was called Race and Chase.
Thank God.
The very first one. And it was not at all the game that shipped, right? So the game had been in development for a long time over in the UK. And there was Vice City, Liberty City, and San Andreas were the playable spaces, right?
Yeah.
Which is kind of fun.
Super awesome.
And the game was more like cops and robbers, right? You're just trying to get away from the cops.
Yeah.
They try to pull you over, and it is but no matter how the developers worked on it and tried to make it fun, it just literally wasn't fun. And they couldn't figure it out. One day, while working on it, there was a coding error. And it made all the cops hyper aggressive. And as opposed to trying to pull you over, they were trying to ram you off the road. And everybody went, "That's kind of fun."
That's the thing.
Wait a minute. Let's push that a little bit.
As a wise man once said, fuck the police.
Yeah.
That's what the code said. It wasn't us.
Yeah. So, and then, because there was no run around shooting pedestrians in it yet. There was none of that.
No, we weren't there yet.
But once they saw that this was actually a fun gameplay loop, they were like, let's dial this up. And then they kept working. And then you get Grand Theft Auto, right? And fun fact about Grand Theft Auto 3, it was originally called Grand Theft Auto 3D.
Oh, thank God.
Then they dropped the D.
Yeah.
Was that a condiment or is that a pornography? I don't know.
Hey, Peru.
Drop the Dijon mustard.
We're going to drop a D on Peru. So we know statistically now, if you are like the one person and or Jeff that follows this podcast and listens to every episode, you may have heard us mention Peru. A single person that we knew listened from Peru that was from Peru, so we referred to them as Peru. Well, the status, if it was a relationship status online, I guess you could say that nothing good in that one person from Peru. We went from in a relation to it's complicated. Peru stopped listening, and now I'm on a mission to bring Peru back. And my first thought was maybe it's because I kind of sexually assaulted Peru as both a person and a nation on this podcast,
a few times.
But then I thought, no, I haven't sexually assaulted them enough.
Oh.
By the way, this is the spot where we have time it here for going off the rails and losing the subject. It's pretty far in. Yeah. But anyway, I'd like to act like Peru was a bag of kosher hot dogs and put it between some buns. How about that? Does that sound good? Was that dark enough for you, Peru? Come back to me. I missed you. But Grand Theft Auto 3D, dropping the D. I dropped the D for Peru. That's where I was going with it.
Yeah.
Back to
that's
it.
Good punchline.
That's terrible, though. 3D. Who would do that?
Grand Theft Auto 3D.
It's like Bugsy 3D.
But let's stop and think about it, how big of a deal this game was.
Oh, my God.
It's like when we call back to the Nintendo 64 episode, which is in our archives, which we have archives now.
Oh, my God.
I said that out loud. I said it out loud. Fuck you, I said it. But watching or seeing Mario 64 for the very first time was such incredible. A moment for me, being a kid of the 80s, and playing, side scrollers and 16-bit, and then seeing this 3D experience with a character that I've been playing for years of my life was a big deal.
Huge.
So to take it to the next step, which I guess Grand Theft Auto 3 is the next step of evolution, right? In
retrospect, a logical conclusion, here's a three-dimensional do anything you want world. Oh, let's murder people in it.
Let's just
humanity, man.
Kill people. Yeah, but anyhow, it was such a cool game. I remember seeing it, first only seeing pictures, because I got GamePro and things like that, and what was that magazine, EGM?
That was the one I subscribed to, EGM? Electronic Gaming Monthly, EGM. Yeah.
I just, little previews for it, and you're like, wow, that's crazy looking. Like, and you read the description, like, you can do whatever you want.
Yeah.
No.
Nuh-uh.
No, you could.
And you literally, up until any point that video game could ever let you do at that time.
And the irony of it, right? And E3 of 2001, when the game had a booth, back when E3 was a thing, remember that? Mm-hmm. No one was interested in it, right? They were all interested in State of Emergency, which is another Rockstar game.
Yeah.
Which no one talks about for a reason.
Yep.
But they were all about State of Emergency, and the developers were like, well, maybe we're not doing this. They're like, this is great. We know it's great, but no one's interested in it. How is that?
They didn't know. And how many times have we seen that in the media, right? Mm-hmm. I mean, you got people who are like, the two things come out, and everyone's not. I don't know. Like, there's so many. Like, who would go see Terms of Endearment when the Super Mario Brothers movie's out at the same time, right?
Yeah.
Two terrible references there. They came out like 5 years apart, but you understand what I'm saying, right? Yeah. It happens a lot, all the time. How many Oscar-winning movies don't ever get seen, but they keep making fucking Fast and the Furious movies?
God, too many.
Too many. And you know what? By the time that we're old men, there's Fast and the Furious 75. Master Chief and the original Metroid 8-bit sprite show up and learn that Dom is all about family.
You just merged 3 different franchises across 30 years.
I have this idea that, not to go too far off the rail, but I believe that we are obviously in late-stage capitalism here in 2021.
Uh-huh.
And I think that inevitably all of this concept, our podcast included, of so much of our economy actually now being linked to pop culture, like in consuming pop culture and nostalgia, that we are inevitably down a path that we'll see. First, we're seeing the Avengers all in a movie together, right? And we see all the Star Wars characters. Well, eventually, we're going to get to a point where we see Disney will buy DC, and DC and Marvel will end a DC versus Marvel movie. It's going to happen. Mark my words. It may be 40 years from now, but it's like, you ever see Basketball?
Yeah, a long time ago.
There's the opening scene in Basketball is absolutely a absolute perfect picture of what I think late stage capitalism is going to be like, well, American sports, once the favorite pastime, have then begun to lose popularity. So they tried interleague play between sports. When that didn't work anymore, they tried intersport play. And they had a football player hitting a baseball, and then he tackles the second baseman, right? And that's the gag. And to me, that's where it's going to eventually get to. We'll see DC versus Marvel. Then all of a sudden, we'll have a Marvel versus Star Wars movie, and Disney will keep it quiet. And then one day, I have this fantasy that's a dark fantasy. It's more of a possible nightmare, a Lovecraftian thing, where you'll see Captain America, Darth Vader, Homer Simpson, Hello Kitty, and a bunch of other shit, probably a Nintendo property, all fighting some sort of mega concept together because they can't do it anymore. That's like when pop culture has eaten itself alive, and then the only thing left to do is for everyone to fucking learn to read again.
Yeah.
But we'll get there eventually, and it may not be that ridiculous. It may be more ridiculous than I can comprehend.
Hopefully we'll be dead before that happens.
Yeah. Most likely Mickey Mouse will have killed all of us. And that only happens in The Matrix. Which will then feature Keanu Reeves coming out and fighting Darth Vader in an epic fight. Here's the thing. That movie sounds terrible, but if you're like, hey, you want to see Darth Vader fight Neo from The Matrix?
I'd pay money to watch that.
Yes, I do.
Are you kidding me?
And that's why late stage capitalism. What were we talking about?
Grand Theft Auto 3.
That's right. Hi.
So, what was your first experience with Grand Theft? What are your first memories of the game?
So, GTA 3. Weird. I had only played Grand Theft Auto 69, or London 69, or whatever that is, on a PlayStation, and I did not like it because of where that was. It was just late enough in the PlayStation's life in the beginning of that generation of console that would fall after the 6th or 7th. That I was not ready for anything that looked like it used to. Right? Okay. Wrestling games are in 3D. Mario was now in 3D.
Right.
If Ocarina wasn't out, it was fucking about to be. Right? All of these other games, Final Fantasy VII was out. A ton of other games, right?
Right.
And then here's a game that is very, very neat, cool, but top-down, kind of a retro-looking game, and I was not inherently into it. So I was like,
No, makes sense.
And it was... I don't know if it was a EGM, or because there was no YouTube at this time, that was the ones we watched or any of that stuff, but some sort of medium I absorbed just started talking about Grand Theft Auto 3.
AOL games.
It literally could have been AOL, right? Like it literally could have been. So I don't know where I first heard about it, but I bought the game. That's what it is. I had my dad had a PlayStation 2 that I would Shanghai, because when you're the child, you get to kind of go in there. But part of, again, as I mentioned in the Nintendo 64 episode, if it was a video game, I was never told I wasn't allowed to play certain games or watch certain movies. That was never, my parents were never really into inhibiting my content.
Right.
But the only real inhibition to it would be, could I afford it? Right?
Yeah.
So I used my own money to buy Grand Theft Auto. I think I got it in November of that year. 2 months after it came out, something. And the way to get the ride to the damn game store, or Ames, I think I might have bought.
Oh my God.
Right?
Dating yourself.
Yeah, was to get my dad interested in the game.
Okay.
So
good call. That's a good call.
And he and I together played Grand Theft Auto for like the first week it was out. We played together in the same room. And both of us were blown away by the freedom of it.
The freedom, yes.
The freedom of it and the detail. Because you look at GTA 3 now in a vacuum and you're like,
oh, it doesn't look that awesome.
No, it doesn't look that awesome. But God, to be at that time. But it was the ability that you could, and you really couldn't do this in games, you could get in a car or steal a car. Then you could immediately get out of that car and walk over to literally any other car you saw and get into it and drive it.
Mm-hmm.
And just that idea was just absolutely incredible. And so that immediately fell in love, and it's hard for me to describe that era, the late 90s into the early 2000s for gaming. And I wanted to get your opinion on this.
Yeah,
it was a real quick shift, right, from how things were in the pre-64 early PlayStation time. Tomb Raider started to scratch the surface. Mario started to scratch the surface.
Right.
And then it was a real quick jump into all of a sudden we're in the land of PlayStation 2, Dreamcast, etc. And now you knew what 5 years ago was 1996, and games had moved on. So, and it was almost like games would come out, and they'd either make it into the cultural zeitgeist, like GTA did, and a bunch of other games of that era, or it went the way of Siphon Filter. And
Siphon Filter.
Siphon Filter.
I haven't thought about that game.
Right. Well, you actually did mention it. I did mention it when we were drunk in our Nintendo 64 episode, and you corrected me. I say Siphon, and you say Siphon. Yeah. So, but like that, who the hell, like the listener doesn't even know what I'm talking about, right? But when that game came out, is it going to be the next Metal Gear Solid? But so many games were still coming out at that time because it was still relatively much cheaper to produce games than it is today on a large scale.
Yeah.
And a lot of games were, did you notice that at that time? That a lot of games were just coming out, and if they stuck, they stuck.
Some games just fell through the cracks. You'd never even heard of it.
No, right? And you're like, oh, you didn't play that. But most games weren't a real big release, right? And it just took so it was almost by luck. Not just that with the skill that GTA came out. So when did you first put your hands on a copy of that game?
I'm about 99% sure the first and really the only time I played GTA 3, honestly, was one of my good buddies, one of my best friends, his home. His name's Anthony. Good guy. Shout out to Anthony. Yeah.
Gibby, are you listening to this podcast right now?
Well, he should be.
Didn't he just win Sexiest Lips in Las Vegas or something?
He did.
He did. Well, what the fuck kind of a sentence is that? God,
Gibby, who thought you'd even say that out loud in your entire life?
But like, because it's one of those things that my brain couldn't comprehend what I was reading when I read it. But then I saw, there's Gibby with his he always looks so sad. And all his pictures, like every time he posts a picture of a fresh cut, he looks fucking sad. Like he just watched Neverending Story, and then he snaps a picture, and he's like, "Got a fresh cut." I'm like, "Why are you so sad about it, though?" But then he went Sexiest Lips, and he still looks kind of sad in the picture.
Yeah. Well,
but shout out, Gibby.
So this is 20 years ago. So we were young, man. I was just literally out of high school that year. Yeah. Right. I was just out of high school that year. So I was still a punk ass kid. He was younger than me. By like a year and a half, 2 years, and like he had a PlayStation 2, he had it at his place. So me and my other buddy would come over and we would just sit and take turns playing it.
Yeah, when you get wasted or you get arrested.
Yeah, that was the thing. That was the GTA game, right? You would try a mission or whatever you did, and if you die, all right, give me the sticks, and then you take over and you play for how long you could live, and as soon as you die, all right, it's your turn now. And we would do that all the time. And it's weird to me because, so I couldn't remember much of the game considering I haven't played it in well over a decade plus.
Oh, for sure.
So I'm like, man, what do I really remember? When I realized we were doing the subject, I'm like, I gotta go back and look at some old missions and kind of remember the vibe of the game again. Yeah. So I went back and there's a YouTube video where it was the whole main storyline, which is if you cut out all the driving from place to place,
it's just missions.
It's 4 hours.
Okay,
4.5 hours.
Seems like way longer because of all
4.5 fucking hours. That's it, which is wild. But you're driving from place to place, so that adds a lot of time. You got side missions, you got this, you just got random bullshit you're getting into.
God, that's crazy though.
So I went back and I watched I watched 50% of it. I couldn't sit through 4.5 hours of that, but I wanted to at least watch a little bit of it, and I remembered so much
vividly.
I'm like, fuck, I did this mission too. I played more of this game than I remember. You don't realize how much you play.
I want to ask you this. Do you remember, when I think about GTA 3, I don't really think even so much about the missions. First thing that comes to my mind, and even the voice acting, which was awesome for the time, right? Yeah. Which is another note we'll talk about. How revolutionary. There wasn't performances like that in a game that basically... There were very few fully voiced games at that point on console gaming, and it was cool. But for me, I remember certain parts of Liberty City in GTA 3. That's for some reason where my brain latched onto this visual memory of these little intersections. When you're on the first island and you're doing those first couple of missions, that one main stretch of road that was down there, and then there was that big honking right turn, and there's a gas station there. I remember that stretch of GTA 3 Liberty City, excellently. But outside of the main character and his girlfriend and all that other stuff. I don't remember a lot of like other visual details about it.
Again, like you said, looking at it in a vacuum, like the game itself. Now, I mean, it didn't age well.
No,
the controls are. I thinking about it now is super clunky. Everything about it was. I mean, the game wasn't super buggy, but it was buggy. But it was the first sandbox game I think I ever really played.
Oh, for sure. I'm
pretty confident. I can't consider Mario 64 a sandbox game. It had areas that felt like it could be.
Yeah.
But it was segmented, obviously.
It was a predecessor to what it had to happen so we could get GTA 3 for sure.
But really, like, the atmosphere, how alive the city felt, considering compared to GTA 5, right? And GTA 5 is, by and large, leagues on every level more alive than 3.
Oh, for sure.
But looking at it in 2001, I have never experienced anything like that.
That's how looking at GTA now, GTA 5 now, is how looking at GTA 3 looked when the game came out.
Or like
it just was
Red Dead,
that was a huge thing. I think we could all talk about the violence, we could talk about the open world and the sandbox nature, but they did an unbelievable job at this of two things. Voice acting was one of them, and world building.
World building alert. Yeah.
There it is. Back to world building alert, right? It was incredible with the how alive it felt. The radio stations, right? And how it just felt with ads and fake ads.
Hilarious radio stations, by the way.
For sure. And so, like, beautiful. I imagine mountains of scripts of really clever writing that someone was really happy. But it just, even when you weren't paying attention, the ambiance of that and the fact that these radio stations were produced like actual radio stations just added to this immersion.
All with the silent protagonist Claude, right?
Yep.
Like, all of it, like, he doesn't say a word the entire game.
And it works.
And it's beautiful. Right? I mean, and again, like, going back and revisiting this franchise, revisiting this game, and then going and saying every other game after that, the protagonist has a real personality, which makes the game better.
Yeah.
But
it's a better storytelling device.
But there's a little bit of magic to the character not saying, where he's just this... He's like this silent dog, he doesn't speak, but he understands.
I think it's almost hallmarking of a lot of classic RPGs. Where the main character, you're just responding through dialogue and you never hear the character say anything.
Yeah.
And one of the developers, because it was the three lead developers on the GTA 3, I can't remember which one of the three, said that his mission was, when trying to come up with what the game would be like, that he wanted to have, if you could make The Legend of Zelda meet Goodfellas.
Oh, they did.
And they pulled it off, but that kind of makes sense. A silent protagonist in a super over-the-top Mafazio world.
Yeah, every character around you is so bigger than life and over the top and very fleshed out, specific, just felt individualized.
It did. Everyone had, I mean, generally, if they had a speaking part in this game, they had a personality, and it was different than the next person with a speaking part.
Now, this game is not without its criticisms, and this isn't even touching on, like, the violence of it, but I do remember playing the game a lot.
Yeah.
And just kind of like... The mission structures were not particularly amazing.
No.
Even then, like, I remember then, like, well, I mean... But, what was the one mission where you had to, like, drive around and pick up, like... I don't know, like porno mags that were being dropped by like a truck to deliver to some guy.
Oh, it's terrible.
And I'm just like, I mean...
Falling car throws out X thing and you have to pick it up mission. Like, that same shitty mechanic was in the Die Hard trilogy for the original PlayStation.
So,
right?
I mean, we've come a long way, but still, it was fun because at any moment, you could accidentally hit somebody, get a star, and you have to evade the cops.
The game, any of its major shortcomings were quickly erased by the fact that, again, never before had you been able to do whatever you wanted to this degree in a video game. And so if you got bored of doing something or you thought it was hokey, well, then there's lots of other stuff to do. A sizable portion of it is violent. So
a sizable portion of it is just whatever you want. Like, Like, I don't know about you, but the cheat codes and just, like, and just when you're got to the point where, like, maybe you're done with the story or you're just not really digging the story at the moment, let's just bust out the cheat codes, get infinite ammo, invulnerability.
Spawn a tank.
Spawn a effing tank, and just blow shit up.
And just go to town.
Yeah.
Yeah, for sure. And it's what a strange strange idea, right? Because now we're like, oh yeah, just get in a tank and blow shit up. Couldn't do that in video games before.
That was such a first.
Oh my god!
You get into like, I don't know, how many stars are like 5? 5 star. You get the 5th star and like the FBI come after you.
Yes, there's only, I believe, GTA 5 introduced the 6th star, which sends the full military. Before, you would get military style stuff for 5 stars, like that would be. But you get bombed by jets now if you can reach the rare 6th star in GTA 5, which is interesting. But speaking of interesting, a good segue for that is, so the game came out. We're talking about how blown away we were, and we were reacting to it. But
yeah,
honestly, there were quite some reactions to this game elsewhere when it came out, man. I mean, so besides the fact that the game was critically well received.
Yeah, made a lot of money.
Made a lot.
It was like the highest selling PS2 game.
Yeah,
I don't know if ever or that year for sure.
It's definitely, yeah. And it was very well. Either you loved it, or you hated it, and most people loved it. So it's like on Metacritic, it still has 97%.
That's wild
on Metacritic to this day. So it's a hell of a thing. But immediately upon release, and I think we couldn't talk about Eminem weeks ago without talking about the violence that was inherent in early Eminem, the comical violence,
yeah,
right?
Comical violence.
And you cannot talk about Grand Theft Auto 3 without talking about violence in the game.
Which is not very comical, oddly. It's pretty visceral, actually.
Yeah, so in my intro, I stated that this is the game that introduced violence to humanity. And of course, I'm being facetious because I love this. I love, quote unquote, #sarcasm, this narrative that humans were not violent. Video games are responsible for a lot of the violence in our society, and humans were not violent before the advent of the video games.
Man.
And Grand Theft Auto 3, when it came out, it immediately became the poster child for violence in video games and violence within youth. Right? Game retailers at that time, Babbage's and even
Babbage's.
Yeah, right? That kind of stuff. They started actually carding people for the rated M games, which they really weren't doing at that time.
Did they do that for Mortal Kombat?
Certain areas did, certain states did. But they really, like, you didn't have to show your ID to buy a video game. You just had to look like an adult or have an adult with you.
Right.
Now, it became, all right, well, because of parental pushback, we had to do this. But I mean, it really became that poster boy for violence.
It was a good scapegoat.
It was a hell of a scapegoat. I mean, if you could pick one.
Yeah, I mean, people are really good at pointing fingers at things other than themselves.
Yeah.
For the misgivings of their children or their lack of parenting skills or their, the bottom line is, violent games have been in gaming for a long time, well before Grand Theft Auto was a thing.
Yeah.
I remember being a little kid and Mortal Kombat coming out, and it was like a big deal.
Yeah.
With the blood.
Oh, yeah.
And the fatalities.
Yep.
Ripping somebody's heart out of their chest and taking a bite out of it, or uppercutting their head off.
Oh, dude.
Mortal Kombat was super violent, and I remember very, very, very vividly, like, talking to my parents about it because I wanted it for Sega Genesis, which Sega Genesis was obviously superior than Super Nintendo because we actually got blood via the blood code.
Blood code. Yep.
And Super Nintendo got the gray sweat, whatever that crap was.
Oh, it was terrible. But I mean, a separate time we will debate the finer points of the Genesis and Super Nintendo and see if it hinges on the blood code for Mortal Kombat.
ABAC ABB.
Yep, there it is. He got it.
I will literally never forget that. I don't know how it's ingrained in me.
If we ever start a speakeasy, right, or a hidden pub, that's your password.
ABAC ABB.
What's the blood code?
but
yeah, I mean, it's not new.
But yeah, it's been around for a long time. Now, and here's the thing: do I think that a little 4-year-old should be playing GTA 3?
Absolutely
Probably not.
No, but that's parents' jobs,
right?
It's not the game developers.
No. So like I told you, my first experience with GTA was when it first came out. I would hang out with my buddy and a couple other friends. My one friend had a little brother who would always come with us and come over, and he was a little guy. He wasn't like 4 years old, but he was under 10. And he would sit and watch us play. And even then, because at that time I'm like 18, 19 years old, I'm sitting there thinking to myself, I don't know if he should be really watching us play this.
That don't feel right.
But he wasn't my little brother, so I ain't going to say shit.
No, because again, I think there is such a thing as social responsibility, but I don't think it extends as far as if you're gaming with your buddies and someone's dumb enough to bring their little brother over there, not only do they risk being exposed to, but if the worst thing that happens to them is that they're exposed to a slightly violent video game, that kid got off lucky.
I mean, it's more than slightly violent, but yeah,
yes,
your point is valid. Your point is very valid.
Yes. Big brothers and with an errant little brother, it could turn into a den of wolves real fast.
This is also very true.
So yeah, for sure.
But I mean, the game is hyper violent, but here's the thing.
Yeah.
But here's the thing. I mean, technically, there's no will. If you play the actual campaign, the story, there's no real way to not be violent, but if you want, you can play the game totally non-violent.
It does not reward you directly for being chaotic and rewarding for being violent in that way. There isn't like a bonus structure to it. You complete missions and you earn money to buy other weapons, but it's a standard video game system. It doesn't give you thumbs up and go into a long-winded thing if you
kill
murder
her
enough.
Again. No, none of that.
If you murder enough nuns.
No, none of that.
No, and I think violence in video games is a sore subject amongst actual video gamers because we immediately call bullshit. Side story that's absolutely relevant.
Oh, good.
Recently, I had to do an active shooter training at my job.
Okay. Yeah, you mentioned that.
Yes, and this douchebag that gave the whole seminar, he's talking about look for signs of active shooters. Look if someone and ask yourself, is this guy a shooter? Could they be a shooter? So he's teaching us immediately to try to profile people, and then he's like, think about all the other things: mental health, Grand Theft Auto. People could be playing video. He literally dropped Grand Theft Auto and then blamed violence in video games. This guy's a cop. Right, and he's giving this seminar in front of, I'm not going to say where I work, but the general idea that I have to listen to this person in 2021 blame video games for violence while teaching us to profile people. I just was like, I know I shouldn't check out of this mentally. But I just don't see the point in having that if that's the kind of instruction we're going to have. And then no one wants to have a meaningful conversation about how to stop this from maybe actually happening in public again. But no, it's easier just to say Grand Theft Auto and blame him. Oh, my, yes. That's the source of all violence. That's the reason why your kid's
talking back to you. No. There's a lot of reasons. And look, and I could be totally wrong, but I'm fine with this is how I feel about it. Are violent video games the reason why kids can become violent? No. Is it a factor? Sure.
I mean, I think
everything's a factor.
It's part of the desensitization of
that's 1,000%.
Desensitizing of America.
1,000%.
Or culture in general, but that's not just that.
No, there's a lot of factors involved with this. It's just one of the little things that sprinkles on top. I don't think it's one of the most important ones.
I don't think we need to come for every come as in go after. Not the other way. We don't need to come. Poor phrasing. But we don't need to go after every piece of culture. Just ask ourselves, is this too violent? Is this going on? Because I think there's a certain level of personal responsibility. And also, I don't think there is a certain level of liability that you shouldn't have to assume as an artist. Right? But I think if you're going to look, man, don't keep looking. You can follow that chain of violence as part of the violence in media as part of desensitizing the moral fabric of Western civilization. It goes back between video games, like G.I. Joe was violent, dude. Right? And people running around and pretending to shoot the Russians. And before that, it was Westerns. When little kids were playing cowboys and Indians, which is terribly insensitive. Right? And awful that the entire concept, were they all sitting around and talking about land treaties? No, they were shooting at each other with play guns and committing faux genocide on an indigenous population. But no, fucking Grand Theft Auto is the reason for all human suffering.
We all played games like that when we were little.
In my day, we didn't play video games. In your day, certain people had certain water fountains assigned to them. Don't talk to me about fucking in your day things were better, okay? So don't come and listen, Grandpa Steve, if you're listening to this, which is different than the actual person Steve who may actually listen.
We all love that guy.
Yeah, that Steve is kick-ass. But the other Steve N with a PH unnecessarily, fuck you in your ways, okay? Anyway, But the reaction to Grand Theft Auto, like, that's what that inspired, right? Was this fervor, and I think that really kind of amped up the violence in video games.
Can I tell you how much I enjoy your fuck you?
Do you?
Yes, I do. I've been wanting to tell you that for like 20 years. Like, listeners, I don't know if you even heard. You felt? I can't even recreate it.
Fuck you.
Yeah, it's intense. It's like the Shane McMahon middle finger. Yeah. Like, he does it so emphatically.
Yeah,
I can't. It's like bam. Yeah. He just does it. But your FU is equivalent to like a megaton FU.
Well, thank you.
Like, if you ever got angry with me and actually dropped that on me, I'd shed a tear. I'd be hurt, actually.
I don't know why I thought where you're going with that, but crying was not that.
What'd you think? What'd you think I was gonna fucking say?
I don't know, but like, you had me on every bit of it. Like, I'd shed a tear.
He said, "Fuck." I can't see. I sound like a fucking idiot. You
guys gotta feel it, right? I am perhaps, as my wife would suggest, I am too well practiced at telling things. Fuck you. Yeah. But anyway. But the reaction to it, I think we get triggered, by the idea of a conversation that violence in video games are responsible for the downfall of society, because we've been defending video games since before this goddamn game came out, and all this game was, for as amazing as it was more ammunition in the tank for people who would never even enjoy the games to begin with. And it makes me think about that quote from Paul Heyman, where he says, I don't worry about pleasing the people who don't get wrestling. I worry about pleasing the ones who do. Right? And that's the kind of thing. It's like
Makes sense.
Most of the people that take the piss out of video games for just gross things would never play the games. And certain parts of it, though, and I'm going to say, because I don't want to be a hypocrite.
Okay.
Certain parts of it I kind of get to a certain way, but it just unleashes more hypocrisy. To me, the thing with GTA 3, if the game had just been this level of violence, because there's so much satire involved. There's so much
insensitivity.
Yes,
there's a lot of shit going on.
There is a lot of shit.
I kind of now I raise my eyebrow like, all right, yeah, I see you.
Okay, yeah, it's like okay. And there's times where, and I think Grand Theft Auto gets smarter with it. It's kind of a self-reflection satire as the game's going.
It's not quite as obvious and abrasive and really just dumb.
It is not shock jock dumb.
There you go.
But it still has shocking moments in future games, but they're done through a smarter lens of it. But in this game, and there's a lot of insensitivity and a lot of satire, but I think it's not just the violence. It's the first major console game to really put sex in it.
My God.
Right?
Yeah.
It wasn't just the sex and it wasn't just the violence. But the two of them together in such a complete mayhem package.
Yep.
That's what set motherfuckers off about this game.
Yep. I mean, it truly is. It is the most violent game I've ever played.
Okay.
Like the franchise, I mean.
It's
the most violent franchise I've ever played.
Oh, absolutely.
And I've played some pretty violent games in I play games. One of my favorite games, Destiny, I shoot people in the face all the time, but their heads don't explode with blood and guts, right?
Oh, yeah.
That's not a thing.
Well, when you think about Grand Theft Auto, if you had to have somebody who had never heard of it before, and you had to explain or maybe had only ever heard the argument but never played the game, and they had to say, tell me the most violent or most iconically violent thing you could do in a Grand Theft Auto game, specifically Grand Theft Auto 3. And I think, and we're going to go down to the iconic, that you can...
I know what you're going to say.
Yeah,
go ahead.
You can have sex with a prostitute.
That's the truth.
In this game. And then immediately murder her to get your money back.
That's so serial killer?
It is unbelievably fucked up that I have to say that phrase out loud.
It's like legit serial killer level.
Here's how fucked up this game is. And you say this in both a severely negative and slightly positive way. It's kind of one of the hallmarks of the series.
Yeah, it 100% is.
To the point where playing a Grand Theft Auto game and knowing that at any time you could find a prostitute, have sex with her, and then kill her to get your money back is like nostalgia in that series at this point. We'll get into... Is this a whole commentary on the concept of society?
It's both good. It's not good. It's
awful.
Good. It's not good. It's both... It's sad in a way. Like, I understand why they put it in the game, but
to me, it's so far because you ask these questions, and Jeff Goldblum, Jurassic Park, your scientists were so preoccupied with whether or not they could, they didn't stop to think of whether or not they should. Right?
Pretty sure he's your spirit animal.
He could. My wife adores him, so a lot of stuff checks out about that.
Okay.
Right. But someone's like, well, how do you get health in this game? It's like, well, someone's like, what, could you have sex with a prostitute? And someone's like, yeah, you could. We could do that. That's how you get help. And it's like, and you would pay her, right? Yeah. Now, could you kill the prostitute the way you normally could? Well, I mean, theoretically you could, right? We can kill every NPC in this game. Okay, cool. So, if you used her services and then you killed her, could she also theoretically drop the money that you just paid her? And I feel like at this point, that developer is now scared of how specific this conversation got.
Yes.
He's like, he's like hitting that button under the desk to call security.
Security.
Theoretically, yeah, we could do that. But then imagine that person asking is his boss.
Yeah.
And he's like, so you're gonna put that in though? You gonna put that in the game though?
We're really gonna do that?
And he's like, are you serious? He's like, yeah. And then GTA 3 comes out, because that's the only way. No one ever thinks, because the other flip side, that the fucked up sociopath that has to make up that as not being a direct response as the developer. I don't know if I want to play that guy's games, but I have.
I wish we could have been you could be a fly on the wall in like the room when they were making that decision, because that's a decision.
That's the whole thing.
And then I wonder if the men and women, which I highly doubt there were a single woman in the room.
Oh, no.
There's zero chance.
It's a whole thing about the video game industry at that time, and even until so unbelievably recently. It's sickening. Mm-hmm. There's not a lot of female representation in these rooms here, folks, when we're talking about these retro
I feel like
games.
if there was a woman in like part of like the head of creative, I don't think that
would not have flown.
But I just wonder, like, when everybody's having that conversation, they all just internally going, "The fuck are we doing? The fuck are we doing here?
Are we doing this?
Are we really going to do this?" Because, I mean, the game's called Crime, so maybe we were going to do it.
Yeah.
Because the game is literally called Crime.
Yeah.
Call it shit. It's called
felony.
Larceny 3.
It's called Felony,
It's called Felony 3.
It's like, are you, to me, it's like almost like it could be another off-base analogy. But it's like being a member of a group and you realize you're about to, I guess maybe all have sex with the same person. It's like train time, and you're like, are we really going to do this? But no one wants to be the first one to say no. So fast forward later, and you're all just sitting there filled with regret at the end of the night.
I wonder if they felt regret after that.
Yeah. Because that became a hallmark in every fucking game after that. But here's the thing. That's what, and we got to talk about the hypocritical nature of all ends of this. Not just the game, right? And not just us as the reviewers, but the people that got really offended about this. Because here's the entire concept of freedom. Is you shouldn't be able to tell somebody whether or not they're allowed to do something.
Right.
But you definitely shouldn't be able to tell an artist whether or not to make something. And that goes for weird fucking art, like spread butthole pictures that are painted with oils, right?
Right.
And high concept art like film and stuff like video games. But people love to tell you that you shouldn't have done that and why you shouldn't be allowed to monetize that.
Right.
And the idea of the violence was already abhorred, and the sex was abhorred, but that one little factor was the grappling point for a lot of people being upset about this game. The fact that you could fuck a prostitute and then immediately murder her to get your money back.
I'm going to say it again. That's some serial killer shit.
It's super fucked up that I keep saying that phrase that really happened.
Every time you say it, I go, yeah.
That really happened in a game that came out 20 years ago, right?
Yep.
So, but here's the other flip side to that, right? So Australia, and I have this specifically outlined in my notes, that when upon the realization, when they were rating the game, which in Australia, 15 plus is the equivalent for mature rating here, right? That's the second worst rating as opposed to adults only, which is the equivalent of an X-rated game, which you don't really sell in stores anywhere. Right. They were originally going to give the game 15 plus as a rated M for mature until they discovered, the Australian Video Game Review Board, that you could murder a prostitute after having sex with her and take your money back. Which I have to say, the whole phrase as part of a social responsibility to just kind of remind ourselves.
Wait, keep that thought. But you imagine being the guy on the board who discovered that.
So it's all right. So
like, what was he doing in the game?
I can imagine someone not knowing how to hold the controller. He's like, all right. Oh,
like,
wait. I gotta do a shitty Australian accent.
Yeah.
So, can't help but notice that's a lady of the night. What button? Hey, Bruce. What button do I hit to talk to her? Oh, you can. Oh, Bruce, you can have sex with this woman. She can touch your dingo. She can touch it. Okay, now what happens if I? Oh my God! Oh God! Somebody call the Prime Minister! Stop what you're doing right now! Crikey!
You gotta get a crikey.
I had to get a crikey in there. But that's the only way it happened. Yeah, right? So here's the thing. They discovered that, so they outright banned the game in Australia. Right? Now, this should tell you. This is the fucked up thing, and I made so much of a special note to put this down. So, they would not let the game be sold in Australia, and they went back and forth with Rockstar about what they could do to the game to be able to censor it just enough that Rockstar would be okay and they would still sell it. So keep in mind, the big problem the Australian government has is that you are able to have sex with a prostitute and then kill her to get your money back. And the compromise that Australia came up with is that as long as you couldn't have sex with her, it was okay.
Oh.
Once they took the ability to have sex with prostitutes out of the game, then it was okay to be sold in Australia, which put that in a commentary over culture, not just for Australia, which we have a singular Australian listener. Let us know.
Yeah, what do you think about this?
Yeah, but society at the time...
Wait, hold on. I apologize on behalf of Mr. Brown for that that accent, that really awful accent.
Oh, I've been watching a lot of Bluey. The kids' TV show.
I have no idea what that is.
It's actually quite excellent. It's a shame that it's so good, but it's incredibly excellent. It's like a bunch of shorts from Australia, and it's just 4 people. Every character's Australian in that show, and my daughter watches it ad nauseum. So you get a lot of Australian accent that I never say out loud, but I hear it in my head. So I apologize, but the commentary back on track.
Yeah.
About that time is that. When faced with the dilemma, you can fuck this girl and then murder her. You shouldn't be able to do one of those two things. And the thing they're okay with is not fucking the girl.
They're fine with murdering her, though.
Yeah.
Okay.
They could have easily said, okay, female NPCs are off the books, right? Or that maybe prostitutes can't be murdered as an NPC. But they're like, no, just don't have sex with them.
No, the sex work was what they had a problem with.
I can't even notice that you're implying that people have a vagina. And we don't believe that kind of culture should exist in our games. Thank you very much. That's got to be what it is, because apparently you can kill them, but you can't fuck them.
Yeah.
Right? They could even say maybe it's not. There's no money involved, but apparently that's too far. But that's the hypocrisy, right? So then you're like, what's your real issue, right? Is it because that you can fuck them, or is it because you can kill them? Well, it's cool. Everyone wants to murder a prostitute. I mean, but it's the idea that you had to pay for it. Like, how dare she? How dare she laugh
what
at
gives
it?
her the fucking
She
right?
just pointed at it and laughed at it and took my money. And then said, I can't help but notice you're that bloke on the government, aren't you? And then I can't do anything because there's a lot of witnesses in this Denny's. Or something to that effect.
Yeah.
I don't know.
No experience in that whatsoever.
I don't know if they have Denny's in Australia. So
they don't?
I don't know.
Okay.
Having never been to Australia, and meanwhile also trying to avoid every Denny's I could go by.
Yeah, I'm good.
But that's the kind of resistance the game met.
Yeah,
right.
A lot of it.
Flat out, outright banning. You know.
And I know that I don't want to get off of GTA 3, but you can't just talk about GTA 3 without talking about the franchise in general, right?
Yeah.
So. And this is to kind of the violence thing. And I know I've told you this before in the past. And it was such a weird experience for me. And I think... And I'm not 100% sure that I'd have been the same way as a kid when the GTA 3 came out. But GTA 5 came out. And I bought it on the Xbox 360.
Yeah. First time it came out. Yeah.
And then I bought it again on the Xbox One because I really liked the game. So when it came out for Xbox One, and I guess PS4, a big thing was like there was like the first person mode, that they added, and I remember reading like going, "Oh, that's fantastic!" Because I love first person shooters, and I've always wanted to really play the game in first person, right?
Yeah.
And so, first thing I did, I booted up in first person, and I had a gun in my hand, and then I shot somebody on the street. And I'm telling you something.
Oh, yeah.
I instantly just took it right back out, first person.
Oh, yeah.
I did not like it.
So, literally, the exact same experience to me. Almost wasn't that. It was just like the idea of I wasn't prepared for that level of how the visceral violence would be.
Yeah.
Now, there is the first part, it looks beautiful. Mm-hmm. And I still like when you're in a weird vehicle in those games to go in a first person. Like, if you find yourself in the cargo plane, I highly recommend you switch to first person. Because it's just so cool to see all the detail they put in the dash of this stuff, knowing that you would look at it in first person. But the idea, yes. To the point where I trolled my wife one time when playing Grand Theft Auto Online. She's just not... She loves games, huge gamer, but isn't ever fully prepared. She doesn't like combat a lot in games.
Yeah.
So GTA is right out, but she was watching me play GTA Online, and knowing that she was half watching me, I went to a clothing store online. I put an all-white suit on with white gloves and a white tie, and I put one of those weird paper bag masks on.
Okay.
And I got a hatchet. Oh. And I just started following this guy around in first person.
Okay.
In full, never killed him. Nothing. I just, every time she would look up, I would make sure she saw me just following this person. If they stopped, I stopped. And just started following them. And I realized that it was I was doing this to mess with her, but just the very general idea that I wore all white, like some sort of Colombian serial killer, a creepy mask, and just followed this random computer character around with the idea that possibly my wife would look up and get creeped out by it.
Yeah.
Is its own social commentary. So there's a lot of darkness to that light, but I mean, so yeah, I would love to talk about GTA 4 and GTA 5 at later dates.
Right.
When we're scraping the bottom of the barrel for video games.
We're looking for things to talk about.
We could do this podcast for 12 years and this still be releasing Grand Theft Auto 5 for new.
I would really like to see GTA 6 at some point.
Yeah.
I know it's coming at some stage.
It has to.
I mean, it's been years.
I mean, yeah, it's like an hour.
When did GTA 5 release?
2010, 2011, 2012, somewhere in that.
That's crazy.
Yeah, well, I mean, Skyrim came out in 2011, and we get a new 10-year sale. Hey,
get me started on
it. It's my favorite game, and so I will, of course, buy it because I'm fucking horrible at that shit. But the idea, it's like some people they try to sell it Skyrim 10-year anniversary edition, but it's like it's been 10 years since the last game came out, and we ain't gonna fucking do anything about it anytime soon.
Listeners, you didn't see Noah do a shimmy in his chair,
full on sales shimmy,
and it was not good.
No, but it's a sales shimmy. It's not meant to be good. It's meant to make you shut up and buy this thing so I don't shimmy at you again.
He did it again. Good.
But GTA 6 though, same. They have no plans to release GTA 6.
So sad because it's making so much. GTA 5 has made more money. That one game has made more money, I think, than any other like gaming franchise ever, or something crazy like that.
It's certainly more money than all the other Grand Theft Auto base games combined.
Easily.
Yeah.
And speaking of money, I don't know what. I mean, and this is so they can make I don't know what to make GTA 6. Right? I guess.
It's a lot like Steam. When Steam came out and eventually ended out basically being a nice way for Valve to print money, we were never going to get Half-Life 3. Never. Until the day that Steam stops becoming profitable and they have to figure out what else to do to make money, then that option's back on the table. That's the same thing with GTA 6.
GTA Online is just so profitable
until they run out of until GTA Online stops dropping enough money for them to worry about allocating resources to stop coming up with new content for that. Then we'll get GTA 6, and then guess what? We'll fucking get GTA Online too.
Yeah, and you know what? I mean, I don't know when this is going to happen because just the online presence, the RP community, the role playing community, which I didn't know about until like a year ago.
People take that shit serious.
Is like legitimately a big deal, like a really big deal. It's a whole subculture of GTA players, and they will role play. They get into these characters. I was watching some people on Twitch playing. I was just so fascinated. It was boring, but I could see how people can find it interesting.
I mean, I have maintained a Grand Theft Auto account for a long time, right? And here's the benefit about GTA Online, and this is the true cool thing about it is that it's tied to your Rockstar account. So I was able to move my online character from 360 to the One like you, and then from the One to PS4, and I can keep the same character and the same progress. So every so often I'll log into GTA Online, and you went from having a house or apartment to having a custom apartment to having a motorcycle club to having an arcade now and a nightclub. And every time I pop in, and you just you're like, oh, I forget I have this X amount of dollars. What's the new gimmick? Let me buy the new gimmick.
I didn't know that all that stuff was a thing.
Oh, it's a whole thing, dude. Like and the drug running and there's so much content that if you went online to your GTA Online now, it would take you a couple hours of gameplay just to figure out what all the new shit is.
I haven't played GTA Online since the last time I played with you, which was years ago.
Oh, that was epic.
That was years ago.
I'm not going to try to sidebar because we will have a separate conversation about this on this podcast.
Okay.
But, dear listener, for being best friends for nearly 20 years, Doc and I haven't had that many online gaming experiences together.
Just a few. I mean, more than a few.
More than a few.
But the ones we have are really good.
That's what I was going to say. Over 20 years, not as many as because a lot of people have only online friends that they only play games with all the time. But every single one of these things has been fucking epic.
One day we will tell the story of Elder Scrolls Online. That one night.
We'll just put that because we'll talk about how that game was a thing, and then we'll talk about.
We should really get back into that
journey.
Thing.
I have it downloaded
on the Xbox.
Both.
Is it crossplay?
No, I don't know if it is or not, but I have it for both. So why wouldn't I? You tell me what we're playing.
I have an Xbox. So
you know what? Yes, we can.
Because the big thing, and it sucks. This is fuck it. We're sidebarring a little bit.
We did so. We spent an hour not sidebarring. We're almost at the end of the conversation about GTA 4.
The fire's in my belly now, and I'm kind of salty about it. That experience, that first day. We spent
when we day one
fucking I don't know 7-8 hours playing that damn game
straight through,
traveling just to get where were we trying to get to?
Hammerfell.
No, we started in Hammerfell.
No, we did not.
I thought we started
in Daggerfall.
Isn't that near Hammerfell?
No. Hammerfell's the Red Guard Society, and that's in the desert. And we started in the Daggerfall, which is one of the.
We made it to to Hammerfell.
That was the whole reason. Remember, we actually went past it because we didn't realize how to get there.
Yeah.
But because we always wanted to go to see where the Red Guards come from.
Yes.
So we decided the game says it's there. It says we can go there. So even over level 10. Let's fucking go there.
And we made it, but then we kept going because we wanted to get as far as we could go because the map's huge.
Yeah.
And then we got to, I don't know if it was Cyrodiil maybe? Or was some area where there were Imperials and they wouldn't let us through.
Yeah.
Because the game's like, no, you can't do that.
Yeah, we're not there yet. The game's been out for 12 hours.
Well, because we were part of the faction of Pact. So, back when the game launched, you could only go to certain areas. You weren't allowed.
You had to pick one of the factions and stay in your faction.
And I remember you and I it was literally a hard wall. It's like, bam, guess what? You can't do this. And we're just like, oh, is that it? Really? And I remember looking it up on my phone no, this can't be right. This can't be right. It's impossible.
I mean, we were running through levels and areas that we had no business being in.
Because it didn't level up. It didn't scale with you at all.
No, and if we had if a single enemy had touched us for most of that journey, we would have been dead right there on the ground.
Running from the fucking bears and shit.
Oh, dude, it was epic, and we're in a game that doesn't really have a lot of sneak properties. We're sneaking through levels. Oh, it was amazing. It was an amazing time. We'll go into Elder Scrolls Online.
But so my point is that it's just getting to that point and realizing you couldn't do it took the wind out of the sail so hard. I think I played the game 4 more times after that.
Yeah.
And I just fucking bought it.
Yeah.
And it is so anti Elder Scrolls to tell me I can't go anywhere I want to go. How dare you tell me I can't go where I want to go? So now it's Tamriel Unlimited, so you can go anywhere you want to go.
Yeah.
Right? Once a year I open the game up, I go in, I'm like, let me just try this one more time, and I go, I don't know what the fuck to do.
Well, yeah, that's the same thing for me. When I look at my library and I see the game on there, and first of all, it's 100 gigabytes or whatever it is.
There's so many fucking expansions now.
Yeah, and then you download them, and then you forget about it because it takes 3 days to download.
Yeah,
we will sometime, and I will leave this on this about Elder Scrolls Online. My biggest problem with that, which we discovered very soon after playing that game, and this is what I knew was going to happen with Fallout 76 too, is that ESO Elder Scrolls Online for the uninitiated, was not enough of an MMORPG to be a good MMO. But it was also not enough of an Elder Scrolls game to play or feel like an Elder Scrolls game. So it stayed somewhere in limbo.
Yeah.
The whole time. And goddamn, a game that has John Cleese in it. Right? Not make me really excited to keep listening for John Cleese.
Right.
But I mean, there it is. And that's a good segue because ESO being an online game, we'll wrap up here in a second and we'll talk about the cultural significance and our lasting impressions of GTA 3.
Okay.
But I want to mention just for a second here that it is, in addition to being a product of its time, it's in a strange position in the history of video gaming because it's technically a part of what we would call the sixth generation of video games and consoles in the world. Right? And the sixth generation started, and I'm going to do the very rare, I wrote down specific data here. So the sixth generation, which consisted of the Dreamcast, the PlayStation 2, the GameCube, and the original Xbox, began when the Japanese version of the Dreamcast was released at the end of November in 1998. Technically, that's the first of that generation. And then the PlayStation 2 was launched worldwide on March 4th, 2000. So to put it this way, it's less than 2 years after the PlayStation's birth is when this game comes out. You would see the GameCube and Xbox both came out on the same day in 2001.
Did they?
Yes.
No shit.
Less than a month after this game comes out on November 15th, 2001. Wow. They came out on the same day. In direct, almost, it feels like in a direct response to fucking Grand Theft Auto 3, which was going to be the Christmas game of the year.
Absolutely.
I mean, and then that console generation ends in April in 2001. Like literally less than 6 months later, the Dreamcast is discontinued.
Wow.
Right, and then the last of that generation would be the PlayStation 2, which the last game came out in the European Union on January 4th, 2013.
Get the fuck out of here!
No, I am not getting the fuck out of
Who was fucking
there.
developing for PS2 8 years ago?
Albania.
You serious?
Yeah, like they're literally in Belarus and Albania for people that were just still playing the PlayStation 2 and didn't have a lot of access. People were they were basically, because in Albania there aren't a lot of fractionary copyrights, and no one's going to go after the source code of a PlayStation 2 game. So Eastern European developers were taking games that were maybe 10 years old, 8 years old, reskinning them, chopping the games up in half, and then putting them in like Albanian language or Estonian language, and then they were selling them as their own games locally.
That's
so there were still games being released, and the last one that was officially released was January 4th, 2013.
What was the name of the game? Do you recall?
I do not know, but that's also coincidentally, PlayStation had enough of this shit, and they shut down the online presence of PlayStation 2
They had
forever.
enough of the Albanians.
Yes, in 2013. But that's the big thing. This was the generation that saw the birth of online console gaming. You could do a little bit here and there on PC before then you started to get into local multiplayer.
Right.
But this was the first game generation that saw the console gaming happen online with the birth of Xbox Live. Xbox Live came out less than 10 months after GTA 3. And that idea of changing the way games, which GTA 3 plus online console gaming is the cash cow that is GTA Online.
Speaking of online gaming, fun fact about GTA 3, if you played the game in mobile, I think you should look at the files of the game and dig into stuff that was left in the game that's not in the game.
Yeah, they never used it.
There was multiplayer in the game that they never finished. There's an actual menu system for GTA 3 to have multiplayer.
That's incredible.
But you can kind of navigate it and everything. They just, I guess, time constraints, money, who knows, but never came to fruition. But that's pretty wild, isn't it?
Yeah, it is totally wild. And you got to think, a lot of the more popular games of that era were split screen multiplayer games. GoldenEye, Perfect Dark, sports games, a lot of that stuff. And party games. Could you mention the different vibe we'd remember if people remembered GTA 3 as a multiplayer game instead of an immersive single-player experience? Be incredible.
That would be.
But, so, last two things I want to say about that generation, because I'd love to talk about these systems on their own the way we talked about 64. But, okay, so the Xbox comes out less than a month after GTA 3, right?
Right.
It would eventually come out for the GTA 3 on the Xbox in 2003.
Right.
As part of that port for that and Vice City coming on to the original Xbox, but the original Xbox was the first, and here's where we saw it, was the first system to have an internal hard drive.
Yeah, big time, man.
And so Grand Theft Auto 3 was one of the last games, that in Vice City, were the last games to have like really big needs on your memory card that are, these big, huge games.
Memory cards, yeah.
Right? Memory cards are a thing of the past. The Xbox 360 tried memory cards for like 5 seconds.
I remember that.
Yeah, no. And why? Because then they came out with this thing called the cloud, and there you go. Mm-hmm. Fuck you. Why do you need it?
Yeah.
Create a login. But
create a login.
Hard drives are a thing. And it just doesn't seem like it's hard to remember a time in gaming where you're like, oh, yeah, shit. And there was no online gaming. When Grand Theft Auto 3 came out, there was no major console online gaming.
Right.
Phantasy Star and a few basic games, leaderboards for Dreamcast games and PS2 games were out, but that was about it.
Yeah.
And there were no hard drives in the gaming consoles.
No.
So you needed a memory card. And here's the last thing of that generation, which, based off our Nintendo 64, the Nintendo 64 is called the 64 because it was 64-bit,
right?
Correct?
Right.
This was the last generation that mentioned bit in anything. That the Dreamcast was 128-bit. And even the PlayStation 2's early marketing materials mentioned 128 bits of stuff. Never again did anyone try to do that weird-ass flex about how many bits they
You're
had.
right. You're absolutely
This
right.
was the last generation of it. Because nobody mentioned bits on the 360 or PS3 or the Wii.
How many bits are this? The fucking PS5?
I don't even want to know. Well, you know what? You could fucking ask if you could find one. That would be the general idea. It's sad because I'm angry about it.
Can I tell you, I'm not a PlayStation fan necessarily. I don't dislike PlayStation necessarily. I'm just not a big PlayStation person.
I can vouch that he begrudgingly plays PlayStation when he does.
I may get a PS5.
You talking about Wolverine? Here's I kind of want to have this conversation with you so bad, but we don't have enough fucking hours in the day to have this conversation because it will talk about the X-Men previous Wolverine game that you fucking loved with him regrowing.
Origins.
The Origins.
It wasn't bad.
No, yeah.
It wasn't great.
And because then we got to talk about your love of Wolverine.
Yeah.
And
he's one of the greatest comic book characters of all time.
He absolutely is, right? 1000%.
Yeah.
But I feel like it deserves not to be a sidebar in our Grand Theft Auto 3
I just wanted to point out that there are few fucking things in this universe that I exist in that would make me want to spend hundreds of dollars for a single fucking game. Wolverine. Literally, it's that one thing.
Did you get your hands on the Spider-Man game from Insomniac? The one that
the other reason is because obviously Insomniac is going to be making Marvel games, man.
Yeah.
And I never played the Spider-Man games, but I know they're excellent.
Oh God.
And I'm like, well, fuck. Now the first Spider-Man game, the one with Miles Morales, I'm like, oh, fuck. Now it's double fuck. Now Wolverine, triple fucking fuck.
Yeah.
Fuck. So now,
and Spider-Man 2 now.
Yeah. So fuck. All right. So now. All right, I have 4 fucking reasons. Look, I'm a grown ass man. I have a good paying job. I can fucking buy a PS5 if I can find one. I can buy a PS5 for just Marvel games and not feel fucking weird about it.
No, because you're a grown ass man. It's like a lot of people go on vacations just to do one thing while they're on vacation, right? Yeah. So 1000% though. I was lucky enough to play. I have it over there. The first Spider-Man game. I haven't played Miles Morales, but I was so unbelievably blown away by how fucking good that game is.
Yeah, it looks great.
Because we could sit here and we could say, and here's the funny thing is, I can say your favorite superhero is Wolverine, right? Mine is Spider-Man. Right. I'm literally sitting here wearing a Spider-Man t-shirt.
I can vouch.
Yes. And so I'm real particular about my Spider-Man. And I don't know why that came out of me.
Was that Connery?
I don't even know.
Like you transitioned mid fucking word.
Happened.
You it was like you started particular normally and you finished it in something else entirely.
I went to a place. That
wasn't Albanian, was it?
No, I don't. Jim Belushi's Albanian. I only know that because of the movie Wag the Dog. But we're talking about it. But it was so good and it was so immersive and it was such an incredibly cinematic experience that I just was kind of completely blown away by it to the point where I've only done this once or twice, and they've both actually been PS4 games that I paused it in the middle of this sequence and I went and I dragged my wife in front of the TV and I said, sit down and tell me that this does not look like you're watching a movie. And I did, and she loved watching that Spider-Man game get played because it just, when you got into like the QuickTime events and stuff, it's just fucking wraps you around it. Yeah. That and a very underrated game called Detroit Become Human.
That's a great game from what I understand.
Incredible fucking game. Talking about all-time storytelling vehicles in a game. Not a lot of gameplay as far as if you like advanced game. It's not Spider-Man, because the gameplay in Spider-Man, you feel like you're Spider-Man. You feel like you're flying, and the motion is great. You don't feel like you're just generically swinging with Tobey Maguire making quips in the background.
Yeah.
This feels good. This is not, but it's if everything it drops as far as gameplay goes, it adds and storytelling. But going back to storytelling, in that generation, Grand Theft Auto 3. To put a bow on this thing, I have two important questions to ask you.
Yeah.
And being is that you did not have a PlayStation 2, which, being a shitty friend, I should have known that beforehand. but then, okay, I want to ask you about the SmackDown games, but we'll go into it some other time, right?
Yeah.
We'll do an episode on the PlayStation 2, and I will physically hook up a PlayStation 2 and let you just dedicate time with it. But is this the best PS2 game? What else could be on the Vice City? San Andreas.
Well, are we talking best PS2 game as in exclusively PS2 game, or just PS2 game amongst all platforms? Because Vice City was on Xbox.
They were both released. All three of them were released after the fact.
Right.
Yeah. So I guess you would say you like Vice City better. I like San Andreas better than either of the other two.
Well, San Andreas I think is my favorite. Honestly, San Andreas is my favorite Grand Theft Auto game ever.
It was so ambitious
for all the stuff you could do, the customization, and like it was super ambitious.
I mean, just the fitness in there as well, right? Just the whole CJ's fitness meter in that. So we're gonna answer no, not the best PS2, because San Andreas exists.
Easily one of the most important.
Oh yeah, I was just gonna say, is it the most important PS2 game?
It's one of the most important video games of all time.
I would put that in my top 10 as well.
I mean, you don't even have to. I mean, look, you don't even have to like or appreciate or be comfortable with the level of violence, and that's totally cool. I can understand if somebody look. My wife, I remember when I was playing GTA 5 when I first got it, and she sat down one day and was watching me play, and she's like, "What the fuck is this?" And I'm like, "It's GTA." She's like, "What? You're enjoying this?" I'm like, "Yes."
It makes you not immediately.
Maybe I'm not. I'm a bad person.
Yeah,
but either way, GTA 3 is one of the most important games of all time because it became the blueprint for all sandbox games, even games that weren't violent. It didn't matter. Like, it showed you what atmosphere was. It showed you what ambiance was. It showed you what world building, look, let's talk about, Cyberpunk, right?
Oh, yeah.
GTA 3, it's characters as NPCs. The world feels more alive than Cyberpunk 2077 does.
Oh, for sure.
And that's sad.
Thankfully I only had hands on Cyberpunk for like 5 minutes. It was all I needed. It was all I needed to know that we weren't. Both my system was not going to be able to handle this when they eventually fixed the game, and I wasn't so invested in the concept of the game that I needed to have it. Right.
Yeah.
So, but I mean, I think here's an important thing, and I want to know. Last question: Cyberpunk, Skyrim, all of these other major open world sandboxy games. Do they ever happen without GTA 3?
Potentially, sure.
Somebody else would have. Somebody eventually would have written Shakespeare if it hadn't been Shakespeare. It just might have taken longer.
Can you imagine gaming without Grand Theft Auto?
No,
I don't know if I can.
I like literally can't picture that being removed from the lexicon of gaming, man. No. But one last thing I want to touch on, and this is just kind of an open-ended question.
Yeah.
Grand Theft Auto 3 came out, changed game. Then you had Vice City and San Andreas, and then we're off to the races with 4.
Yeah.
And in that generation with the Xbox 360.
Yeah.
It inspired a lot of almost Grand Theft Autos, the near beer equivalents. And I have a feeling what you're going to say to this question, but I want you to think.
I'm listening.
What's your favorite non-Grand Theft Auto game? What's your GTA clone knockoff?
I mean, there's
a bunch.
Are there a bunch?
There's a bunch. I mean, there's enough to consider this.
I mean, okay, you can say like Watch Dogs, sure. I mean, I could go in that route.
Yeah.
Okay, so if we're like opening the net that wide.
Yeah. Games that you can say are blatantly were developed with Grand Theft Auto 3's capabilities in mind, in that play.
I mean, there really is only one. Saints Row. Saints Row.
And here's what I want to say. And here's what I want to add into that. Because I don't think we'll ever, and God help us if we ever starve for content to be able to do a whole series on Saints Row.
There's a new one coming.
I know. I figured there is because they keep making them, right? But it's a real big come from Grand Theft Auto 2 to Grand Theft Auto 3 and how the game looked, right? Mm-hmm. But from GTA 3 all the way through to Grand Theft Auto 5, the games have gotten maybe more mature in their presentation.
Yeah.
But they really haven't changed direction very much. They've just gotten better and tighter and focused in on their craft. Saints Row,
Faster,
on the other hand,
more intensity.
Saints Row, it's like you can tell like a new director takes over the series every game because the first one's like so hard to be a GTA clone, and then the second one starts to let the guard down a little bit, and it's both more GTA clone and also a little bit more ridiculous. Then GTA 3 just Saints Row 3 leans into the ridiculous.
Yeah,
then Saints Row 4 is completely, utterly ridiculous. You're a giant superhero hitting people with a double-sided dildo. And now we got a new one. And then there's like games where they take you to literal hell. Mm-hmm. I think they had the most fun with it.
Yeah, they don't take themselves seriously whatsoever.
No, I'm going to change. I'm going to do a different answer, though.
Okay.
I don't know if you ever played it because it was a PlayStation 2 exclusive.
Okay.
But it was a game called The Getaway. Did you ever play The Getaway?
Hold on. I remember The Driver, which is not the same thing.
No, that was just Driver.
Yeah. The Getaway.
So The Getaway was the English kind of snatch, lock, stock, and two smoking barrels crime movie. The Guy Ritchie movie.
I feel like I remember the logo more than I remember the game.
That was that answer. Someone who may make an appearance on this podcast and I both worked at the same time at the same store when The Getaway came out. Mm-hmm. Well, we were friends by then, obviously. Mm-hmm. I quite enjoyed it. But it was very serious. And if you were looking for like comical, say anything, go anything version of that, you weren't going to get it. Like the way you weren't going to get that GTA because it was, hello, Jody. Here's kind of a very serious, because in every Guy Ritchie movie, every character says every other character's name when they talk to him.
Yeah.
Hello, Lenny. How are you today? I don't know, Johnny. How are you today? Well, Lenny, I'm feeling it. Well, Johnny. They keep saying it, and they did it in this, and it was very slow and deliberately paced. But my God, the game felt a whole vibe. The Getaway. So that's my GTA. So we talked about GTA clones. We talked about the importance of the game, and we talked about a lot of interesting things, but I think if we're going to talk about important things that were interesting, then what better to talk about than our subject? What?
I pulled up on the Google machine here. Yeah, I remember this game, and I actually may have played it with you.
Yeah, I think we played it together.
I'm pretty confident, or maybe I didn't. Another buddy of mine, he had it on. He had this game, and he and I played it because I remember now. I played this game quite often because the only way you could heal, you had to like lean against a wall or something, and you would heal.
Yeah, and you had to immerse yourself in the world in order to heal. Yeah.
Crazy. Okay, I remember that game. That game was fun.
It was really good. It was different. It was different, and
it was definitely more serious.
It was not trying to be the same as. Yeah. It was trying to be in the same vein.
We used to say, "Oh, time to get some wall," and you like against the wall and you heal up.
Get a little wall.
Yeah.
But yeah, that Getaway. I was trying seamlessly while you were looking that up to segue into talking about next week's episode. So let me just try to say that really you only get a couple of moments to do that.
Yeah.
But we want to talk about moments and important moments. Mm-hmm. Then next week's episode might be just that important moment, especially for you, sir. Mm-hmm. So why don't you tell everyone what we're going to talk about? You know what? I'm not going to put you on the spot by that.
Okay.
It's music.
Okay.
And we're going to have a guest.
Yeah. So I'm real excited about this episode because we're talking about an album that was not the first of its kind, for sure, but easily the most popular and the most transformative of its time, and it's obviously around the same time as GTA actually coming out, around that like a year or so in that ballpark.
We just keep hitting these areas.
We're gonna talk about Hybrid Theory.
Linkin Park.
We're going to talk about Linkin Park's debut album. We're going to deep dive into the album, maybe a little history of it, and, our favorite songs. I know I'm a much bigger Linkin Park fan than you are, but you are quite a fan of Linkin Park, especially that album. Especially.
Yes. So I have a whole vibe, and you're going to hear talking about contradictory. Oh, hello. Sorry.
Hi.
You're going to hear talking about contradictory concepts. The reason you heard that sound, dear listener, is because I get nervous when I talk about Linkin Park, because I really, if you ask me, do you like Linkin Park, Noah? I would say no, right? I don't. But the parts of Linkin Park that I do like, I really like, and then I start talking about it, do I like Linkin Park? I guess I do.
You do.
And do I just hate myself for liking it?
There's nothing wrong with liking Linkin Park.
See that, and we are going to have. So this is going to be a very complicated episode next week, because here's somebody that really enjoys and has a deep emotional connection to some of this music.
I do.
I do not, and my deep emotional connection to Linkin Park is largely based around my own self-loathing. And then we're going to add another voice from a very special friend who will be joining us. So this is going to be a weird dynamic.
I'm going to just go on record and saying ahead of this episode that I feel, as we discussed the songs, because I think because I'm excited to do this whole music thing, because with Eminem, it was
huge,
difficult.
It was a huge catalog,
because we covered the artist, right? But this opportunity to cover a single album gives us a chance to listen to each song.
Yeah.
Because the album's not long. Their albums are never long, which is good.
They're like 42 minutes or something, right?
Gives you opportunity, listen to each song, and you might find, as you listen to each song, as a grown man now, and then discuss it with two pretty big Linkin Park fans, you may actually have an emotional attachment to some of these songs, so you don't realize that you have.
Well, here's what I've decided to do, just to try to be scientific about it, because I want to like it.
Science. I'm
going to write down 2 lists. Mm-hmm. One list is the songs, without looking at the album, that I remember are on Hybrid Theory. Mm-hmm. And I want to write down the songs, either 1 or 3, that I remember liking the most, as I sit here having not listened to anything from Hybrid Theory by choice in a very long time. And then I'm going to listen to the album again, and I'm going to see if any of those 3 songs change for better or worse.
And that's really cool. And I won't be doing any of that because they're constantly in my rotation anyhow.
That's fine.
But I think, especially too, with going back and listening to this album, I think with the hindsight of Chester Bennington's passing,
which we'll talk about, which
directly affects his music when I listen to it now, because you start hearing things, and now even still years later, things have come to light about his past, his youth, and how some of those songs, even on that album, had to do with his youth and things like that, which are really fascinating and sad, actually.
Yeah.
But I'm really looking forward to it, because we get to really deep dive a very specific subject that's going to be very not so concise. And yes, our guest is probably the biggest fan I've ever met, that I'm friends with, at least.
Yeah.
And I think we're all gonna have a good time with this.
I think it's gonna be a really fun time, and interesting dynamic, just not only about talking about this record, but for the episode and for the podcast. And if you have been hanging and banging with us so far, why don't you stay a little bit more? Come on back next week. We're gonna talk about Hybrid Theory, and then after that, we're starting the cycle over again. I mean, Hybrid Theory is our second music episode. We're still trying things out, but we're back. And if you've been paying attention to the order we go in, that means it's a movie.
Yes.
And why don't you tell our singular, amazing, sexy listener what that movie's going to be, Doc?
We're going to be talking about 1990s Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles.
Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles.
One of the great movies of our childhood.
Yeah. I am not gonna go into it too much, because I want to save it for when we discuss it.
Yeah.
But having recently rewatched Masters of the Universe for our Masters podcast, and recently rewatched the Ninja Turtles, I can tell you what, I feel 2 different ways about those movies.
I bet you do.
I do. I feel 2 completely different ways. Not all of it's positive, not all of it's negative.
That's right.
But there's a little bit of A and a little bit of B there, and I'm really excited to talk about it.
We'll see you there.
All right. Well, guys, that's been it.
Yeah,
I think we actually did it reasonably this time.
Yeah, I think so. We're not bad.
A lot of content.
But yeah, thanks everybody for joining us. We appreciate you.
Share us.
Yeah, look us up on Facebook and Instagram
and YouTube. You can check both the
we may
Facebook
be
and
coming
Instagram.
up with a Twitter page at some point.
Eventually, you know what? Someone else needs to tweet, because I'll just get us in trouble. I will seriously just tweet the Peruvian government over and over again.
Don't do that.
I mean, that's why we haven't started a Twitter yet. I can't be trusted with nice things.
Okay. Well,
but tell your friends about it.
Yes.
If your friends are like, if you're ever sitting around with your friends and they're like, you know what, God, I just wish 2 late 30s men would just babble about endless shit to me. It's like, oh, well,
I got a podcast for you.
check it out.
Yeah.
Well, speaking of checking out, we'll check it out next week, man.
Yeah. Stay safe out there, folks. Thanks again. We'll see you next time.
Peace out.
Later.
Bye. Nothing good.